course. Yeah.
Cool. So when it will start recording, we can feel flexible because I can plug it anywhere.
Okay.
Put it anywhere. And yeah, it's recording now. So yeah, you got 15 minutes. What would be sweet? Cheers. I wasn't happy to hear that you aren't bored, because aren't bored isn't curious.
I mean,
yeah,
it's just
so,
me not trying to be rude or anything like that. I think.
No. I know. What I'm saying is, guide me through that line. How do I make this bridge between not bored to you're confident? I'm curious.
Okay.
What does not relate to your experience?
That's a tough question, because for me, curiosity sparks out of something that I haven't ever seen or heard before. You know what I mean?
Okay. So it's not doesn't sound new enough.
But I mean, don't get me wrong. This is pretty new to me. Right. This interaction. But I feel very overstimulated with everything.
Okay.
And so sometimes I feel just very tired of everything around me that's happening. Especially this last year, where I was just constantly going to London and back every day. And then, for instance, I saw this famous director who defined cinema.
Right.
Francis Ford Coppola, right? For Apocalypse Now. Everybody was excited to see the guy, but I felt absolutely nothing. And I was trying to understand why. Because I thought I got angry at myself, because I was like, I should be excited for this. Everybody's like going crazy over this guy, and I can see him and I can shake his hand, you know. And I watched his films when I was younger. They taught me his films at my previous university. Why am I not feeling anything? And then I started thinking about it a lot, and I was like, well, it's because this industry is just so fucking rude and mean. And nobody cares about you as a person. They only care about how much you're worth. Even if you have, if you have the skills, they don't care about your character. They just care about the skills that you can offer them for profit. And it's really annoying. What I find really fun, what I enjoyed more, was actually being with my friends who expect nothing from me, and I expect nothing from them. You know, so, the girlfriend, she told me that I owe her nothing, and she owes me nothing, and I owe her nothing. And ever since then, I mean, I felt, wow, yeah, you don't owe me your love. I don't owe you my love. It's just, if it's there, it's there. If it's not there, then so be it. I think after those sort of experiences, I've kind of gravitated towards people who just kind of inherently understand that concept. I have a few friends who charge you for eating a piece of bread at their place, which I find to be ridiculous. And then I have other friends who would pay for my travel to go to university, even though they're struggling themselves financially, and they ask for nothing in return, but just happiness, you know? Not even a thank you, just, Yegi, go enjoy it. I'm like, well, thank you so much. And then, you know, I realized that most people in my industry do not do that whatsoever. They just don't give things because out of the kindness of their heart, or because they want to see the next generation thrive. It's more people who are on my age, in a similar situation, that we're able to give each other things and sort of create a club. That's, or like a little tiny community, but that tiny community is so important to me, because it just allows me to not feel alone in a world that makes you want to feel alone for some reason, which I find so contradictory, because the medium that we're in, which is making films and music, is supposed to be shared with others. It's supposed to be collaborative. And yet people are trying to keep everything to themselves. And I can understand the reasons why not. Maybe you're just shy, maybe you don't get along with people, but at the same time, what's the point then? Again, it goes back to what I used to say earlier in my life, around 3-4 years ago, is that, people are the reason for everything that I do, even if I hate them or love them. Somebody made those Pokemon films for me to watch in hospital. And because of that moment when I was 10 years old, I wanted to be able to do the same thing for somebody else in the future, no matter what. And I think it's because of that experience that I felt alone. My family had to go work in a different country, so I was just alone in a post-Soviet hospital. And I'm sure you know what Soviet buildings look like. Just concrete, poor healthcare, the lines, the queues.
Talking about those cold visuals, can we go
Yeah,
outside
of course.
once
Yeah.
more? Can I ask us to get cold?
Coat?
No, can I ask us to get cold?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Is it okay if I leave my stuff here?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this little fact here, where you basically allowed me to play with your physical sensations. Because I had done that deliberately, asked for it deliberately. It has a very interesting meaning. It will have an interesting meaning by the end of this chat. You were talking about the cold visuals of this brutalist architecture of Soviet buildings.
I grew up in Ukraine for a little while. And so, you have the carpets on the walls and stuff, and the pelmeni and everything.
Yeah. Pelmeni.
But then when it gets dark, you just see this endless landscape of more concrete apartments. And it's a very strange feeling. It's almost scary being in that space. It's almost like a shared misery for some reason. And being alone in that hospital for a year, because my family had to make money, right? So they had to go. The only thing I had was this little soft toy with my mother's perfume. Meanwhile, I was getting injections everywhere, every day, so that I could get my legs back.
Which we are happy to see working well. Yeah.
After I came back, she put me on all kinds of sports so that I could get some muscle back. And now I have too much. But I'm not complaining. Complaining. Yeah.
You can't complain about that.
And so, but it wasn't just that. It was also because of these movies that I was watching, which I think also because they were Japanese cinema. They have a different type of philosophy in terms of altruism and just giving to people without taking anything back, and perseverance. And I think perseverance is exactly what I needed in a situation like that. And I think
as a work, figuring out basis.
Make something. I mean, the that I made awful. People would laugh watching the film, and I was like, yes, I get to see people's see their with something that I create. Towns, for example, in Estonia, and when you go to the old town, you see old architecture. Like, oh, this is kind of nice. See the Christmas lights. Oh, that's kind of nice. That's because somebody created it.
Speak.
And I think instead, I just wanted to create something for everybody to enjoy, and more primarily because of that situation where I was alone in that hospital. That dream of wanting to create started from within and wasn't given by anyone else. I think that's where a separation can be made with people who get somewhere and people who don't, or people who have the perseverance to keep going and who don't, because if they don't do it, their inner self is shattered. They just become hollow.
Are you mindful of what you had said enough so you would be able to repeat it?
Yeah.
Try.
Because I was alone in that hospital, and because of the want to help people through films and through music came from within, there's a clear separation that can be made from people who, quote unquote, make it, whatever that may be, whether it be, self-fulfillment, and people who don't.
Right.
Because if I were to stop doing what I do, I would feel like I'm not me anymore. Who am I without what I do?
Pause. We will have to backtrack that and carry on with that conversation if you'd be happy further in a podcast style, because that's a very deep thing, especially from a young lad like yourself. I will anchor it with an illustration.
Mm-hmm.
There's a slight disruption of that chat. I had filmed an independence, a day of independence, Ukrainian celebration of independence here in Cambridge. The organizer whom I spoke to, whom I shared with plenty of things that I've been developing over all of those 9 years, she was mind blown like everyone else. Basically, to cap it with like a harsher picture, I can put it this way. I had, in an argument with Leon, told him to stop complimenting me. I'm fed up with compliments. Can you imagine?
I have the same
Right.
issue.
So in order for him to pay attention more to what's real, to the things which do not have to be entertained, which just like based on the sense of duty, simple common sense, right? So what happened with her? We shook hands that we will move forward together for the Ukrainian cause, for the peace between Russia and Ukraine, from my perspective, my parents,
Yeah.
and all sorts of other things. And then what happened, the trust of those things that she had honored got betrayed by herself. So we had, we had met again, I had shook her hand again, so we would close it. So we would agree that it's a failure. And after that, I said to her, look, at this point, I like you and all that stuff. I like the way you had received those things. You were the first Ukrainian over those 9 years who had received it this way. And then it wasn't enough. So I want to explore it. And I said, let's put it this way. Next Friday, I said, I will be performing at the open mic. Come over. Yeah. If you will reflect on all of this, and if you will decide to yourself that you don't want to engage for one or another reason, just don't say anything. Let's just have fun. Let's just chill, grab a pint of beer, have some funny talks, blah blah. If you will be happy to say yes, but in a proper sense, you will see how my soul spills onto everyone with the happiness, and that will be amazing. And she didn't even get back to me at any point. And I'm thinking, I had told you that at this point I'm on the last chapter of my social awareness cycling tour. After all of those years, 3 years of cycling, those 6,000 miles, plenty of cities and all that stuff, if I will go through my journey with the same mentality of not repeating the people for whom it should have been relevant twice, and if I won't meet the person, a Ukrainian person, whom I wouldn't have to drag behind me or push forward, whom I wouldn't be able to walk together with ease towards that brighter future, I will have to say it, conclude that in my documentary as such. And do you think after that statement, international community will be more encouraged to support Ukrainian cause or less? And it bugs me so much. I had literally spent a month and a half here in Cambridge, wasting my time trying to psychologically just digest it, because it won't make me happy. But at some point the line has to be drawn, And people have to understand that it's not me at this point. I've made myself available for 5 fucking years with all of my talents to everyone who could have been helpful, with honor and respect and kindness and all sorts of stuff. And at this point, if that is not good enough for you, who wants to get more support, not only the guns and all that stuff, but even moral support, for rooting for Ukraine to recover and be a decent, flourishing country. If that's not enough for you, everyone has to know that. And at this point, either I will have to learn what I was missing, or you will have to learn through a very, very harsh challenge when you will be criticized for a fair reason. And you will have to face the people who won't have motivation to support you at best, and at worst, who will be against you, right? For a good, solid reason. Do I want to see that? No. Do you, Alina, want to see that? No. I want to repeat to you twice. Shoot a hand. With kindness, shoot a hand at this failure. I gave the space. I can't breathe. I can't breathe that fucking toxic air anymore. Right? So, I don't remember right now where I had paused you. But that is the arch which gets me frustrated and confused within that narrative, right? Which we will be able to reflect back on, or I at least, from that live stream, right? That piece of information in my head is what's missing for that bridge between you saying that you haven't been bored and me saying that's not good enough because I want to see you curious. So, coming back to that anchor point, right? In my head, for my experience of 9 years of efforts, even that critical aspect wasn't enough at the best time and the best person among Ukrainians who had realized it all and still haven't got motivated to get in touch, right? What am I missing? Tell it by your angle, like, because in my head, once we would arrive on the land of curiosity, that would allow me to claim and challenge you with like a harsh tone and maybe even slight tint of rudeness, that you must start a conversation with me publicly about those things. You are fucking grounded. I had been maintaining that sense of reality through all this surreal experience. Your mom is Ukrainian, for fuck's sake, right? At some point there was one half Lithuanian, half Ukrainian lady whom I've met in Swindon, and she had told me to not surrender, right, to still go forward. And I'm thinking, at that point, you are the best person for whom I could say such a thing as, you understand the value of Lithuanian teachers of ethics because you are half Lithuanian. You understand the cause of Ukraine because you are half Ukrainian. If I will tell you that I will follow your advice full-heartedly, full on, and I will chase you. You recommended me to not surrender. I can see you right now standing in front of me, and I can see you as the best person for me, the best person who can understand me the best. You recommend me to not surrender. I won't surrender. I will chase you. Are you happy to hear that? And she said, and she was shocked, right? So I'm thinking, okay, you are a young fella. Most likely than not, you had realized a lot of my reasoning due to how smart and wise you are.
No, thanks.
I'm thinking, if you will, after that chat even, and there's no demand on this reality at this point. I'm happy to just see whatever falls back at me. But if you won't find a transition towards a curiosity, I won't be able to demand from you that honest, transparent public conversation, specifically through Instagram stories, because of my all observations over those 9 years, confirming that that's the only technological tool that we have to use, because it's the least resource demanding the least amount of resources, and penetrates the largest amount of spaces that needs to be addressed. And if I will not be able to demand that from you, if you will stay within that space of not bored but yet not curious, so I would have enough space to ask you to tell this story to your Ukrainian mom, who would have more wisdom, who had brought you up and nurtured all of the noble traits of yours, meaning who paid attention to those things. If I would ask you to ask her, what could I do better in order to motivate such a talented kid as yourself to do something novel about this problem so it would be resolved in a more spectacular way?
Slowly.
That's the mathematic, that would be the mathematic which I would be algorithms which I would be using in my head. So knowing all of that, what can you advise me? What can I do better to either land you on a space of curiosity for that proactive action, or so I could get the wisdom from your mom?
It's a very tough question, I'll say that.
Well, I'm breathing it for 9 years, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that.
Well received. Thank you.
It's a tough one simply because of the reasons that curiosity, I think, can't be extracted from someone,
Right.
but I do think it can be cultivated.
Okay.
And I think exposure really does a lot in being able to allow people to just be curious. Exposure to different circumstances in life.
But I can't change that.
You can't change them. That's the
The
problem.
The only option for
Yeah.
me to get active in that regard in your life would be annoying.
Yeah,
The only tools
yeah.
which I could tap into would be annoying to yourself. The way
Yeah.
and that's why I gave you that sense with Leon. When I asked him like, how many times you were fed up with me, and I'm still there. So imagine if you would get fed up with me for 7 times. How many times can I get you to feel enough of me in order to decide either to critically have a talk with me and to tell me to not do that and to do something else instead of that, or in order for you to just cut it and stop it completely, like Leon so far haven't done. How I can get it, let's imagine that, okay, let's remove that not ambition, not demand, let's remove that.
You mind if
Need.
Yeah. I think what you've done, in particular in my case, was that you already sparked a curiosity within me. And that happened yesterday, right? And engaging in a potential future is always exciting to a lot of people. Some people don't want to explore different futures, and that's maybe a result of their life experience. Maybe they just feel safe and comfortable where they are. Whereas there are some people who have been through so many different kinds of circumstances where what difference does it make to have another change, right? I don't mind having another change in life. I've been through so many now, and they happen so quickly after the other. 1 minute I'm studying in film school, another minute I'm being sent off to the military, and then another minute I'm back doing masters, and then I'm moving twice, and then I get sick, and then constant change. And so I don't feel scared of exploring the future in any way.
Okay, pause. Those words, if I would honor the fact that you are sharing that openly, from the sense of your responsibility to yourself, informing me, this freak, right, to receive a message that you are already curious, that's when I go like, so then let's start a conversation over Instagram stories, I wouldn't have confidence to say tonight, but tomorrow. It's a minute of your time per day, which everyone could have done, including Leon, who wants to speak. He was the first person of that caliber, businessman who had that integrity to values, his own values. In all honesty, so I could invite him to Michael's cafe, put this camera on, and so it could see all the body language, all the twitches, discomforts, mistrust, and honor, and opportunity and hope, right? It's 360. It captures everything.
Yeah.
And he was the only person of that caliber who was confident that he can do that, right? And yet still, he had missed. That's a story for another day. The last week was super intense for me. The things started breaking up, and I had posted one, and I thought that he would see it, and he haven't, and that just suffocated me for 3 days. I almost broke what I was building with him due to the fact of how upset I was with that little thing. It's just a minute to pull your phone out of the pocket, right? You go on Instagram occasionally, you see the message or something that happens. If you want to say something, you don't have to react instantly, but Instagram story allows you to use it as a video message, right? The only thing that's different is that you can save those into highlights and convert highlights into reels, which are getting automatically advertised, right? And then you can delegate that conversation to the people who you mention, who have that confidence and sense of integrity to their values, so they wouldn't be afraid to speak with their own face put to it, which you miss in, for example, that fastest conversation over TikTok, let's say, right? Everyone is hiding. Instagram stories are limited with 24 hours per day, so people who are not interested, they will not be able to tune in, or if they will tune in for a little bit, they will miss the beat very, very quickly. So only motivated people will stay. You know, the real face. Ukraine had created the digital spokesperson. Journalists, when they observe a real life spokesperson, they are tuning into their discomfort and their body language to understand how clear the conversation between them and a leader is. And that's absent from the digital spokesperson. But the digital spokesperson will be widely adapted now. Ukraine has started it, but what we need is more of the people who aren't afraid to put their face to the conversation, right? The only opportunity to do that in the nicest way on a platform which has the least amount of controversies, that's Instagram. That's the only tool which can allow us to do all of that. But then if I will break my bicycle, right? If you will see that story, how relevant it is, will it be to you to respond or to say something either to me or to call me out on the Instagram story and maybe attach and mention someone else so they would see it and join the conversation? Is there enough oomph that I have created even to those 2 conversations that I had with you? I would think, and maybe I'm wrong, that there is not enough. I don't know, what is your perspective?
Shall we? Yeah, sure. I mean, I would agree with you.
So what specifically are you agreeing with?
That I think that a broken bicycle would probably incite nothing from me. But it's also...
So the point why I used that, and cinematically, think about it, I hope that you will appreciate that. I had asked us to get cold, right? And now you're talking about something specific that should, in theory, physical theory, should make it warmer. You're giving me very practical, honest, reasonable advice. And now we came back and we feel that how warm it's coming. So that's how I kind of play with this physical sensations. Is it cool?
Yeah, it's what I do as a director sometimes.
Glad to speak to someone who understands.
There was this one interesting time. I'll tell a quick story, but then I'll have to leave in 5 minutes if that's okay. I was making a film using AI. It was supposed to be a live action short film using real script, real people. It's just that the locations would be AI, and this was before ChatGPT. And so I pitched it. It got selected. Okay, cool. But the issue was that I didn't have actors. So we went through hundreds of applications where we just couldn't find a person. But then I noticed a girl in a canteen who looked exactly like the person I was looking for, and they served me a box of loaded fries with cheese and beef and whatever. And I just asked the question, like, can I sell you a camera? I didn't even ask them to be a part of the film. But eventually I did ask them if they were interested in acting. They've never done acting before. And so what I would typically do, because I just feel very uncomfortable asking favors from people. I didn't grow up in that circumstance. Everything that I received was with a lot of pain and effort. And so when somebody gives me something like food at their own house, I'm like, ooh, are you sure? Like, I'll clean the dishes for you at the very least, please. You know. So when I came to work with her, I wanted to understand who she was, because I'm asking her to essentially, metaphorically, be naked in front of a camera. All actors are pretty much naked in front of the camera. They're performing, they're crying, they're showing a different version of themselves, and we're asking so much from them. So what can I give them in return? And I wanted to know more about this person, to understand how their psychology works and how their brain works, what triggers them, what doesn't trigger them, so that I can be aware of what to do on the day of shooting to not upset them, to make them feel safe and comfortable. In her case, her father unfortunately passed away. And there was this fireplace that they had, which had a lot of historical and sentimental value to her. And so we had a scene together where we were supposed to be emotional, and she would start crying. And we were dancing together, and then I would just simply whisper, the fireplace. And then she would just start bawling her eyes out, and then we just had a conversation afterwards for about an hour to just ensure that everybody was okay, that it was a loving and safe environment. And since then we've been friends, and since then I was able to see how she flourished as an artist, as a musician, because her father was a musician. And that's who she wanted to be as well. But she was a bit too scared to go on stage. And so from that experience, I was super thankful to see that she actually went on stage for the first time. Even though it was like 5 people watching, but she did it. And now she's in Czech Republic, going on stage all the time. And it's just such a beautiful thing to see. But it's like you were saying, when you took me outside to feel a different environment, to incite a different response. That's what I also do with my actors, and sometimes with people when I want a certain conversation to be had. Some people may say that that's manipulative, and you can make the case that it is. But I think if there is communication and goodwill at the beginning, then it's not. It's more of like an experiment. Yeah.
Accommodation?
Sorry?
Accommodation?
Yeah.
You
It's an
accommodate
invitation.
what's
Yeah.
needed
Yeah,
to
exactly.
reveal something that
Yeah.
we wouldn't be able to reveal without it.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah. Yeah. That's. Sorry. Yeah.
I have heard you though. Yeah. Is there anything that you would want to honor in what I had shared with you?
Yeah, I think I would like to honor.
Count on fingers.
Oh, I'm not very good at counting, but
Just list and
I think it's very honorable to have courage. In general, just having courage to experience new things, to explore different avenues,
Sounds too abstract. Get deeper on the ground.
Okay, courage to communicate with people, courage to start a conversation. Nobody wants to have a conversation, it feels like. They only want to talk about what's safe in their own bubble. But if their views are challenged, and if their ethics and morals are challenged, it can get quite tricky. But having the courage to step into that uncomfortable space is what's very important. It's what allows growth and development and self-improvement, I think. Or maybe not self-improvement, but it can also be self-degradation, which, you know, you can never account for these things, but at least...
That's another thing for a podcast, by the way.
But in my view, whether it be self-improvement or self-degradation, that's the whole point of living, you know? Otherwise, who are you as a person? You just become a shell and floating in space, I feel like. Despite everything that I've personally been through, all the horrible breakups and, you know, the military and the financial circumstances and moving to multiple different countries to the point where I don't feel like I'm at home anywhere except for the people that I'm with, I would never say that I regret it, because that's what built me. And now that I see that I can make some people smile, I think it was worth it, you know?
Now let's close this chapter. Just trust me that I had received the message and jump on the second thing. Again, we are identifying honor.
I think being able to push people to think.
Do you think that I'm doing that well?
Yeah. And this can be as simple as just asking a question, or rephrasing a question, or exploring the same question from a different angle, or flipping the question, you know? I think, you know, a lot of the times people just give a question and then expect a yes or no, but it's never that simple. Nothing is ever black and white in anything. And so just being able to explore a question through all its intricacies is very honorable and very valuable. Also, kindness. Kindness is very important. In a world that's so full, what it seems like through social media, through the news, through word of mouth, that seems so miserable, kindness is so important to give to other people, because then it feels like you can create a sense of community, a sense of, you know, okay, they're a stranger, but I don't have to be scared of them, you know? In my ideal world, I don't want to walk down the streets of London at night and feel like somebody's going to mug me or like stab me. I want to feel like, oh, this person over here, I can have a conversation with them. Part of the nature of my industry is to do just that, to just come up to people, strangers, and ask them for things, and almost give nothing in return. So I understand, I think, your method of just approaching people and asking for something out of them when you don't necessarily give much in return. But you do give something. You do give the opportunity to think and share. In a world where we have the means to share everything, but we don't. It's the same thing that you've been saying about, like, you know, people beg to have more friends, and we have the tools to do so and be more connected with the world, but at the same time it feels like we're not, you know? And so creating a space for that is important, creating a comfortable and safe space. It's almost like therapy. Being able to essentially provide therapy is a very honorable thing. Having friends is like therapy. Having video games is like therapy, I think. So kindness, also respect, consideration.
That's what you honor in what I had shared?
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to agree with anything that I say, and that's perfectly fine.
I can tolerate it.
You can tolerate it. And that's
meaning restrict from myself from throwing a brick at you.
Exactly. Exactly. But that's what makes the interaction respectful. Because we're human beings, we're not monkeys. Why should we be throwing shit at each other, you know? I'll have the respect of listening to you, trying to understand, and maybe even criticizing. And you can do the same to me. And I think that's important. I think that's very good. That's a sign of respect on both sides. Consideration is another thing. I might say something that is completely off the walls, horrible, but he had the consideration of listening. And just the fact, listening, you know. A lot of people just don't listen. I've spent the last year trying to explain myself to somebody who just did not give a shit. Every reason that I gave under the sun of like why I couldn't do something, saying I can't do this because of this issue, this issue, this issue, 1,000 issues that are out of my control. And all they had to say was, yeah, but you still have to do this. And I'm like, okay, thanks. Thanks so much for considering everything, which was nothing, you know what I mean? So that's very important as well. And also, I guess one last thing is also showing, leading by example, which you do very well, which is, you know, your interaction with Leon earlier, taking me outside. You're showing me your thesis. You're showing me your method through practicality, which is important as well. Because a lot of people talk the talk but don't walk the walk, as the saying goes. And so, in my case, for instance, if I say that I want to help people through my films and help people understand their own emotions by expressing my own through my films, then I have to just make the films, you know? I have to lead by example, because that is the whole basis of my values and my morals and my ethics and everything that I am and as a person in this world. I just have to act upon it. And I see that you're acting upon it through what you've told me about your history, what you've been doing for the last 5 years, 9 years. And there's nothing but, you know, I can only give you admiration for it, because there's so many things in this world that I think, just looking at my mother and my father, that prevent us from doing things. And it's just heartbreaking to see so many people try as best as they can to improve the world where everybody is just being shit to them. You know, I think being virtuous and being kind is very hard in a mean world.
How am I kind?
I think it's just basic human consideration.
There is a difference between being good-hearted and kind. Not every person who is good-hearted knows how to be kind to the others. There is this lack of translation.
Yeah.
Right? So how am I kind? What do you identify? What do you see in order to call it kindness? Let's challenge it. The fact that I had invited you to this place and with this sense of, you know, comfort or my ability, you know, to provide you with like free coffee, hopefully a good time, listening to this crazy story, is selfish, right? You were the first case that I could have built something important things with forward, and I need to take an advantage of it, right?
I think
How is that kind?
that's a good question. It's very hard to define these things. I don't know. I had this conversation with somebody about selfishness. What is selfless? What is selfish? And technically, because I started thinking about it a bit too much, but I started to think that everything we do is a bit selfish because we want something. And if you want something, then that is inherently selfish somehow. But doing something selfish can also be selfless. Because,
for example, if I want to make the teachers of ethics famous worldwide, egoistically, I might want that because I would know how that would benefit the others, not necessarily myself.
See, it can be selfish and selfless. Because you would be fulfilling a desire for yourself, which was to bring something selfless to others. So, and I think that's what you've done today. Also, bear in mind that, you know, I grew up in a Eastern European culture where we have very little to offer, but we still give. you know. Um, for instance, like you provided me with coffee and a space to talk. I mean, a lot of people, unfortunately, like for example here in the UK, would just kind of do this and that's it, you know. And some people would even charge you for for eating their food at home when they would offer it. It's like, here's food from my shopping list, now pay for it. It's like, okay, thanks, I guess. So I don't know. I think. Okay. Well, here's another thought. Being able to try and put yourself into another person's shoes and try to understand how they think and what they might be thinking is a kind thing to do. Because that just means that you're trying to connect with them, you know? And that's very kind.
Let's pause and let's get self-aware for your time again. You gave me a lot of priceless insights, some things, new things that helped me to learn. In general, all of your genuine effort to digest what I've been sharing is I am super grateful for. I have a student, my best student, creative guy and all that stuff. I kind of felt that I'm going to do something crazy and that he will be a support of mine. And I was kind of asking him to help me on the way, so he had helped me to prototype a few things. And yet, in all honesty, I can't call it asking. That was rather a polite form of communication, but I was basically telling. Right? You are the first student at this point whom I want to ask.
Oh, thank you.
Would you be happy to, or would you want to, direct with me a documentary over Instagram stories? Because when I heard you reflecting on things, and that gap between is definitely not boring me and curiosity, and I admire the way you had brought it back there. But in that space, hearing you, for example, being motivated to engage in someone else's success in a specific way, in your own way, right, of that artist whom you spoke about, I was thinking, well, okay, so if you said that the breaking of the bicycle, if it wouldn't necessarily activate anything in you, I'm thinking, what could? And then when you shared that story, rooting for someone's creative success, I felt like, well, what if we would co-direct?
I think
Because I need a different perspective, which nobody had been bothered to provide to me, and among the significant people over this journey. I mean, like, not significant for me, but for the world, like reputation-wise and etc. And they couldn't have been bothered. And then there is one piece of information where just before the clashes between woke and conservative traditionalists, right? Just before that clash, they had discussed that over one podcast, and one person had said that, well, it's unlikely that someone will be able to inspire 21-year-olds by themselves. And then I've been trying to assemble that working team over this chapter of 5 years of that struggle, and didn't happen. And literally 2 weeks ago, I started realizing, well, it will mean that I will have to disprove him, because at this point, nobody else wants. I'm pushing everywhere. I had staged all the space. I wasn't asking, so there wouldn't be my drive behind it, so you could act on your impulse of initiative. But at this point, with you, with this final chapter, I felt finally some comfort to just accept and admit it. Yeah, I'll have to do it by myself. I can't expect, for example, your proactive action, which I honor, when you had said that this bicycle wouldn't touch you in any meaningful way, you know. But you're the first person whom I can ask, right? So it would mean that the whole directive process would be on my shoulders, but everything beyond what I can physically carry through that experience with my talents, you could complete by filling in those gaps with the contents that you own, right? And you would be not a 21-year-old, but potentially, degradation-wise, I'm 36, you are
23.
23, and then by watching you, 21-year-old will be able to relate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you think that that constructs enough meaning for you, so you would see the reason for you to get involved by directing me through your feedback through Instagram stories? For example, I posted that story. I can even reshare it tonight, so you could watch it and respond tomorrow. Why do you think Leon couldn't find motivation to keep track of it? And maybe call me up and say maybe you need a hand or anything like that, right? So you could respond to it. So as a cinematographer, so I could learn how to build that part in a compelling fashion.
Yeah.
Because I know that as a homeless dude, I can excite a lot of people by just standing there as a homeless dude with a 360 camera. That's done. Enough excitement already and mystery, right? But not through Instagram story. That's too banal, right? So I had exhausted over those 9 years all of my potential, figuring out what could be done. I had there's one clip from Southampton Uni where I collaborated with one guy in the Faculty of Philosophy and Cinematography. And he runs lifelong learning program, and he had studied ancient Greek philosophy where ethics come from. The best setup, and it failed very, that's one of my probably most curious questions. Why the fuck did it happen the way it happened? Because the guy was again complimentary and blah blah. I have even his feedback on Instagram Live, right? But regardless, there was one moment where I sat there and used like a multi-camera filming with just Insta360, just to optimize it. Yeah, it's here, then here, different angles, carrying on with from the same posture, so it would be felt as if that was filmed by someone else, right? And that was my peak. So I can share the link to you so you could watch it. And I know how to polish it, how to make it feel smooth and blah blah. But I know that if I would do the same thing with that bicycle situation, Leon wouldn't still have motivation to reach out. And there is some mystical source in there which I miss due to my silo, right? That tunnel vision. And I can't push myself out of that enough. I need someone else to do so. I had to train Leon, like I said, to be critical with me. Right? When he was walking there, he said like, well, at this point, JJ, if he doesn't, he can go fuck himself. Fuck off. I'm doing something more important, right? In order to have that kind of almost brotherly confidence, there has to be a distance that we had to walk, right? And I know that with your insight, most likely than not, I would be able to deconstruct it much more effectively if I would ask you just like, not even ask at this point. That's only one ask, and then this thing just happen if you are getting on board, right? But then when you see something and you think like, well, okay, knowing that you want to reach out to that person or to this person, maybe you should do something this way and that way. Yeah, even like communication narrative, words-wise.
Yeah.
Right? I thought that you are actually older than 23. I thought that you are like 26.
Oh,
right? Just your wisdom and the experience which you had collected, it speaks bigger volumes than your age, right? So I know that you would be able to, like I said, bridge that gap, especially 23 and 21, so close, right? In order for me to deliver to the youth the sense that they are decision makers, that they can change a thing now, you would be the best kind of illustration. You'd provide that kind of image, which I can't be. I'm not, even though I look young and all that stuff. There is already some older habits, let's say, right?
I suppose so. I mean, it's very complex subjects, but
Let's make it shorter. The matter of yes or no, the quickest response. Would you like to direct with me the Instagram documentary?
I wouldn't be able to, simply for one reason, and that's just how my life is laid out at the moment. I think if I wasn't in university, I would have said yes in a heartbeat. But honestly, like myself, I'm still finding meaning within myself and finding a way to be able to create meaning for myself. I'm looking for purpose still, you know? And for me to be able to do so, I just need to do my thing, which is to create stories that come from me. And it sounds like a selfish thing, because throughout the last 10, 11, 12 years, I found that I haven't actually done a lot for myself. And that's my biggest regret in life, is that I actually haven't really gave a shit about myself, and to the point where I just express myself the way that I want to express. You know what I mean? And so I think at the stage of my life where I'm at right now, I think I would be doing you an injustice with the amount that I would be able to offer you. But what I can say is that I'm more than happy to have conversations, but co-directing or making a piece of content is probably at the wrong stage of my life at the moment.
You know, if I may, because that's the point where I think that your lack of life experience or age does not allow you to tap into something bigger, wider. Because I can see myself easily optimizing, entertaining everything to a degree where you wouldn't feel that you're losing energy, but where you would feel that you're gaining energy. I can do those things even like an avatar for you. Like if you see that I'm exploring something and you want yourself, you know how you would have experimented with it. If you would tell me how you would want to see it being dealt with, I could do that so you could see what would happen after your choices. There was this person online who had started just giving his audience like the right to choose for him. He wants to watch 5 movies. Like she goes like, "Which movie should I watch?" Anything which you will select won't go against my desire, but you will see me react towards what you want. It's not necessarily my choice, so there's that proximity of like this almost like Kickstarter-like proximity of their involvement gets even more personal. I find plenty of ways how to entertain it in a way where you wouldn't lose but capitalize, right? That would require trust, which given by you